there, and welcome back to the Adventitious Adventures podcast. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome, and I hope you enjoy what you hear. Also, feel free to go back and listen to the other episodes just so you can know kind of who the characters are and what's going on. If you're returning, thank you so much for continuing to be here. I wanted to say a little bit of an announcement. So, depending on when you are hearing this, obviously, later this week, the first episode that my husband and I filmed of a live series between the two of us is going to go live, so you'll get to see that out shortly. And as I've always said in these, if you would rather read this whole adventure rather than listen, feel free to go over to wordpress.com where you can find all of our adventures and including our second and soon to be third campaign out there too to read through, and that's with the same name of Adventitious Adventures. Also, you can find all of this on YouTube and Spotify, so wherever you're listening from, great. On to the story. After deciding to leave the city of the Dragon Spirit to aid Shop's village, the party found themselves on the road. They came across a pair of monks who explained that they were on their way to a nearby monastery that had recently been founded. It turns out that Inara knew the men, but a few misplaced comments led to a confrontation in which Malvis miraculously seemed to have once more gained magical abilities, unintentionally bringing down one of the men. As the two groups part, Inara shares about who these men were and how she kind of knew them, along with some insight into her life at the monastery before, and the party finally shares what they had gained from the Dragon Spirit, leading them all to adjust the trajectory of their travels just a little bit. Seeing smoke in the distance, the party heads off once more, unsure of what they will find. Once more with the party traveling along the road, heading to the monastery in search of Marcus. After heading in the direction of smoke that they had seen in the distance, they come across a makeshift camp filled with men, women, and children. As they pass by, some of the men watch, suspiciously on alert, but not aggressive. Before they can get past, a couple of the men guarding stop the wagon, asking what they are doing there. The party discusses what they should say or do, eventually leading to Inara addressing the men, asking about the monastery they were headed to, and Marcus himself. The men tell them that they are from the monastery and have set up camp here because they're on their way to another. They also let her know that Marcus is actually here with them, and offer to bring a message to him. Inara tells the men her name and that she wishes to meet with him. At this time, the men turn to each other, a bit surprised, before an older woman approaches the group, saying that they will not be harmed so long as they do not try to do harm, and welcoming them into the camp. Looking at each other, the party follows the men, unsure, but realizing they cannot back out of this situation now. Shortly after entering, they are approached by a red-headed young man, who seems surprised but happy to see Inara. She realizes that she knows him and greets him, his name being Gabriel, and she's stunned to find him there. As they're chatting, another man comes forward out of a nearby tent. He makes for an imposing figure, and as he draws near, it is very obvious that this is the man they have been looking for. Marcus greets them respectfully and talks a little bit before saying he had been told Inara had questions. She had been fairly quiet until then, seeming uncomfortable and surprised. As if it is hard to answer, she eventually asks him why he created this new monastic order, and if that was always his plan after he had left her. Marcus seems to weigh her questioning, but before answering that no, it was not always his plan, but after realizing how wrong their order had been, he felt he needed to do something. He tells her that the order hid themselves away in the mountains and had no true idea of what the outside world needed or did. That they trained those there to be defenders, but did nothing with them, in short, making them weak. He goes on to say that he believes that it is better to be out in the world, to use their skills to help others, and how through his training, he has made those that follow him strong. As if to prove his point, Marcus inquires how many of the elemental symbols Inara has found. and talks about how he was surprised they sent her out at all, making it painfully obvious he does not believe that she can or will succeed. His criticism seems to make Inara falter, but Malvis steps in, claiming that they had found many of them, which is a lie. Marcus seems to sense this as well, pushing Inara to answer. She eventually tells him she has found at least one, and Marcus seems to scoff at that, once more iterating how she is weak. Inara finally seems to find her voice and tells him that if he is so sure of himself and his training, they will stay here the night and he can prove it to her. Just as he's agreeing to the arrangement, an older woman comes forward asking if they had seen or met her son. He apparently had been traveling with another companion and should have been headed back to the camp. It did not take much for the party to realize that this woman must be talking about Harold, the young man they had accidentally killed. With that knowledge, the party comes forward with telling the woman that what had happened. The woman is heartbroken, crying out loudly and emotionally, making all of those gathered uncomfortable. Marcus looks back to Inara, who is now standing next to a still apologetic Malvis, seeming ready to once more criticize. However, he instead remarks that Harold's death was necessary because he was weak and failing his training. He continues to talk callously about the situation, eventually provoking Inara to remove the staff off of her back and attack the man. Marcus doesn't react, instead seeming more intrigued that she would lose her cool for it all. Inara tries to go after him again, but instead is stopped by Malvis, stepping between them, attempting to calm her down. After a bit, Inara does back down, even though Marcus continues to talk about how she is weak and how the only way to be strong is to forget all but the power and training. Still angry and hurt, she tells him that logic is flawed because it is missing friendship and love, which he must have forgotten about. Marcus laughs at this observation, saying that those things do not matter, prompting Malvis to ask if he knows of a deity named Ula. He answers that he does not, but Malvis explains that many of his ideas sound a lot like hers. Once again, Marcus seems to scoff at what he is being told, and he tells the party to leave. As they turn to go, Marcus seizes the opportunity to once more hurt Inara by remarking that Mitram and Saren, and Chop, show promise and could have made good warriors, however they align themselves with others who are weak, seeming to mean Inara and Malvis. The party loads back up on the wagon and starts to head away from the camp, deciding to keep their original plan of heading to Chop's village. Watching them leave, the older woman, Harold's mother, asks Marcus why he would say those things about Harold. He ignores the woman, however, instead turning to some of the monk guards next to him, telling them to send word to the monastery that they are going to war. As the wagon moves down the road, the party debates where exactly they should go. Mitram proposes stopping at one of the northern bases, which prompts a sullen Inara to remark that they may not be the most welcome there still. Chop asks why, and they tell her about how Malvis killed the queen, which got them expelled from the north. She seems surprised and inquires why we would have done such a thing, to which they explain how she had been part of a cult and was putting everyone in danger. Chop seems to accept this narrative, not showing whether she agrees with the action or not, before saying that either way, it may not be good to leave Mitram on his own. After traveling a little further, the party stops for the night, making camp beside the road. They all try to rest the best they can, but as morning comes, Saren wakes with an uneasy feeling. Looking around for the possible source, he spots a greenish-blue aura of light in the distance, and a moment later the silhouette of a figure. Drawing slightly closer, he spies a strange-looking man, carrying carvings of men's likenesses on his person. Saren hears a voice coming from the man's direction, saying that he has found his next collection piece. Somewhat shaken, Saren rejoins the rest of the party, who are now starting to wake up. They pack up their things and load back on the wagon, continuing to head towards Wulfwater and Chop's village. After a while of traveling, they come to a suburb-like city named New Brighton. Mitram, Saren, and Chop enter the city proper, coming to find a church. Inside there is an assembly line of people, mostly women, who seem to be making medicine and potions. Mitram approaches the line, and one of the women asks how they can help. He shows her the crest he got from Princess Alexa and inquires who they are. The woman tells them that they are servants of Sokdaya, a goddess of sisterhood and brotherhood. She says that the princess visited them not long ago asking for their aid, which they agreed to do by sending medicine and spreading word of the goodness of the north. Mitram asks how the princess and her cause are doing, and even without her answer, it is easy to see it is not going well. The woman tells him that the war does not seem to be going in her favor. The New North is making a lot of ground and dispelling many more refugees than before. She says that the refugees seem to be taking more of a hit as well, since they had heard of one of them coming who was mortally wounded, which was a shame since she seemed to be a wonderful musician. Mitram is intrigued by this news and asks if the woman knows anything more about this refugee, but she says no, only that she was accompanied by a fighter or a thief. Seeing that they had gotten all of the information they can from the woman, Mitram, Saren, and Chop head back to the village. As they are walking, a wheel from a statue that had been built on top of one of the buildings seems to break, falling down towards the trio. It appears to be headed straight in Saren's direction, only missing him with the aid of Chop throwing her axe at the wheel. It does still hurt his arm slightly, and as he is inspecting it, he hears a disembodied laugh, which neither of the others seem to notice. Arriving back to the wagon, the party continues on their way. After some more hours of travel, they finally reach the city of Wulfwater. Without even entering too far, they can see that the refugee camp is much larger than it had been when they were there before. They see Mayor Ethan handing out bread to some children, and decide to ask him about the wounded refugee. Malvis disguises himself as an elven woman before Ethan notices Mitram and heads in the party's direction. He greets them fairly warmly, and Mitram asks about the refugee, to which Ethan leads them to a large tent. Inside, they see Mitram's sister, Rin, obviously wounded and looking terrible. Stephanie is there with her, and when she sees the party enter, breaks down crying and goes to Mitram. Ethan tells them that whatever is affecting Rin seems to be some sort of toxin aided by magic. No matter what their own healers have tried, it seems the toxin continues to spread. Saren comes forward, looking the girl over before telling the rest of the party that this is something he has only seen once, and that it essentially turns the person undead. Seeing their surprised faces, he casts a restoration spell on Rin, battling hard with the darkness within her. It seems for a moment like the toxin will win out, the wounds upon her spreading. But after a moment the girl leans to the side and vomits before laying back down, now looking much more like herself, as Saren falls to a chair in exhaustion. Moments later, Rin's eyes open and she asks for Stephanie. The woman comes forth, followed by Mitram. When Rin sees her brother, she breaks down and asks what is happening. Mitram explains the situation and where she is, before she tells him in an emotional voice that the New North was targeting children, and that they captured their brother, Purcell. She says the only reason he was not killed was because he told them he was Mitram's brother. With this revelation, the atmosphere in the tent grows tense. Ethan steps forward, saying that there is some hopeful news, however. Many of the southern leaders met with a large group of people that appeared from the west, from a place called a sky, and arranged to send an army, along with the other southern forces, into the north to end the battle. He does stress a slight reservation, though, that there does not seem to be an effort to stop the war, but to annihilate the north. Cutting through the even stronger tension at Ethan's words, Chop asks if there have been any refugees like her. He tells her yes, there were some that came last night, who are apparently not from the north, but still seeking asylum. Sure that this must be her family, Chop asks where she can find them. Ethan says he can lead her to them at a nearby tavern, and she follows him with Inara in tow. The rest of the party chooses to stay in the tent, Mitram to be with his sister, Saren to rest, and Malvis to work on possibly summoning a new familiar. When they reach the tavern, Inara goes straight to the bar, while Chop goes upstairs. Having been told that the people she is looking for are in room 2, she barges in without knocking. Inside, she sees a familiar face, her father, who she runs to and hugs warmly. After reuniting for a little bit, she asks why he is here, and where everyone else is. With a sad expression, he tells her that their village was attacked and burned to the ground. He was able to escape, but others were not so lucky, and were thrown into mobile cages and taken away. Bowing to do something to help, Chop bids her father goodbye and heads downstairs to the bar with Inara. Back at the tent, Mitchum goes close to Rin and Stephanie, still making sure they are doing okay after everything. He feels movement in his bag, and pulling Stephanie away from the others with him, he releases Charmander and shows her. The little dragon is acting strange, and once Mitchum is able to speak with him, says that he does not feel well. As they are watching, Charmander grows larger, and with a roar discovers that he is able to now produce fire. The dragon says that he feels ready to fight alongside them now, and asks how he can tell who is good. Mitchum tries to explain, but the dragon just has more questions about what it means to be good or bad. Stephanie, meanwhile, has been watching in awe. Mitchum introduces Charmander to her, telling him that she is a friend, and they bond for a little while before Mitchum urges the dragon into the orb, after realizing he is too large to fit in his backpack. The scene shifts then, almost as if back in time, focusing finally on the party making their way through the barrens with the princess. As they watch, Bruno jumps into the herd of elk, getting critically wounded. Suddenly a strange man appears next to him, killing him and stealing his soul, as wolves howl in the distance. The scene changes to Laurorin, lying wounded in front of the guards after being abandoned. They debate if they should spare him, but in the end are urged to kill him, plunging the sword down into his chest. As he lays bleeding out, the strange man appears, stealing his soul from him as well. Once more, the scene shifts now to the road where Mitchum, Chop, and Hobbs were confronted by hobgoblins. As a fireball hits the cart, Hobbs tries to jump off, but his leg is caught by a strange figure, holding him among the flames. As he fades away, the figure says he possesses the best options, and he knows just who to come for next. Okay, so on some level that episode was a little bit more of a travel-esque episode as well. However, there were some things that I think were good to point out, and were interesting, I think, playing-wise as well. The main issue, and one being Marcus, and his relationship with Inara, and his, now his stance on everything. It seems much more direct and, I want to say militant, but strict than it was, from where they had come from, and where you'll find out Inara kind of sees him as eventually. Like, it doesn't seem to be the same, which is something to keep in mind as it goes around, because you will learn a little bit more about their relationship eventually further on. He's an interesting character and will eventually show up once again later on down in the story, just to see how that goes. He's teamed up with some people, spoiler alert, that may or may not be a good thing. Then you have this almost like twofold experience where, they have refugees, and that impacts both Chop and Mitchum's stories and families. And I think we get some interesting things there too, because you kind of get to see what happens outside of, or what is happening, I guess I should say, outside of the party. And so now you've got these two forces in that location of both the New North, who's kind of causing all this chaos, and then Sky, the people of Sky, who are coming to what seems like the aid of the North, but it will be interesting to learn more about them, because we've learned a little bit that they might not be exactly who they say they are, but we don't have any like definitive proof outside of people's, words to say one way or the other. With that, I am very excited for the next episode. It was one that I still remember playing to this day because it was so funny. The beginning of it is semi-hilarious, and the ending is kind of crazy. But it's a lot of fun. So hopefully it translates to being a lot of fun when it comes up next time, because it starts in the tavern. As most, basic D&D experiences do. But I think it's kind of funny because you start to see some true feelings start to come to the forefront of a couple of people in the party. Anyway, it's fun, it's a good time, so I'm excited for that one, so stay tuned for that one next week, or next time. And yeah, until then, roll well, and I'll see you then.